Go on then, what was this thing you wanted to talk about?
Well, it was just about predatory marketing tools.
Okay.
So obviously, I was having a conversation with somebody internally. They were learning to use Google Ads. Not sort of like, completely new to it, but sort of like we're experimenting with it and trying to learn how to use it well. And
does his name rhyme with Hubert Barrison?
It does. It does. And he came to me and he said, I've done this thing. I've followed all of like Google's prompts and the things that it's told me to do, and I've set up this campaign.
Big mistake.
Well, this is my point. Like, Hubert Barriston is a smart guy. He's switched on. And what he'd created at the end was something that, like, genuinely would not work and would have wasted him a colossal amount of money if he'd run it. And, it's a funny thing because I looked at what he'd done and I thought, as a practicing PPC operative or whatever, whatever term you want to use.
Trainee expert.
I was like... Man, I was like, I have no idea how it's ended up here. It's terrible. It can't possibly go live. And I worked back through it and I was like, oh, I see. All he's done is exactly what the tool asked him to do. But what it creates at the end is a campaign that is, so loose, so broad, so poorly optimized.
Which is perfect for Google because it hoses money.
You waste
in their
a ton of money. And it's like, oh, well, we need you to just give the algorithm one sort of broad theme. And then we will spend lots of your money finding out if people who search for things within that theme bucket really want your product. And Google is not alone in doing this. Loads of tools are like this now. They sort of, they purport to be very user-friendly, and they have very user-friendly interfaces, and they have a beginner mode, and they walk you through things step by step, but they don't actually work. To actually get anything useful out of them, you have to have a ton of insider knowledge or to have been through this process before. And I don't know when that started, but I certainly think it's become a really prevalent problem. And I do think it trips a lot of people up. There's been times recently where we've spoken to new clients and they're like, oh yeah, I've been messing around with PPC in my own time. And you look at it and it's just like, wow, that's terrible. But but it's not their fault. Again, they don't know that, all of their clicks have been coming from, Candy Vibe mobile apps or something. Do you know what I mean? It's very deceptive. And I don't know when that sort of became the norm, but it's just something that I thought would be interesting to sort of chat about because I just think it's very, very sort of worrying that that's the direction of travel, really.
But don't you think the online world is full of the most horrendous deception?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about advertising, and I've spoken before about newspaper websites, they are full of deception. Like, you will not believe what this celebrity looks like now. You know what I mean? All this clickbait, all this utter nonsense, where deception seems to be the norm online, and maybe it's filtering its way through into
tools,
SaaS tools, and some of the technology that is popular.
But I'd put HubSpot up there. I mean, you said yourself, he's creating a blog post. It's constantly prompting you, use AI, use AI. Now, if you know for a fact that you can write better than the AI, you're going to ignore that. But if you don't, it knocks your confidence. You're like, oh, I could just, maybe I should. The tools, the expensive platform that I pay thousands of pounds a month for is telling me to do this thing. Maybe I should do it. And it will produce garbage. I was listening to a GoDaddy advert the other day, and it was like, oh, when you sign up for a GoDaddy domain, you can use our new AI tool to build your logo, your website, your social media posts. And it's like, people will think that these are genuine offers. They will take you up on them. And then they will be bankrupt because of it. And
use our web tool to build your website, and it's optimized for SEO or Google search in mainstream advertising, as if like all you do is click a few buttons and you've got a highly optimized search-friendly website that's going to generate loads of money for you. And they just make it sound that simple.
Hubert Barriston has an Ionos website, as you well know.
Yeah.
And there again, it was like, oh, do these things and your website will be 100% SEO optimized. And people will, people who don't know any better will think, oh, if I just fill out these fields in this form, then my website will be optimized for search. I don't need to worry about that anymore. And some people think that by installing the Yoast plugin in WordPress, they have SEO optimized their website, and it's not true.
No.
But I really do feel for them because I feel like it is a predatory business tactic to sort of sell people this fake peace of mind.
It is.
And then not deliver on it.
Yeah. Well, what is it? We were using the Page Speed Insights tool and tools like Page Speed Insights, which give an overview of some of the issues with your site. This page is very slow because if you do this, it'll fix it, that kind of thing. And then, in the dashboard, it's got like performance score, it's got an accessibility score, and one of them is the SEO score.
Yeah.
But you can have a page that scores 100. So anyone would think, right, well, that means it's going to appear in Google search and get people looking at it and generate business for me. But it doesn't mean that. No. It means it might be garbage, but you've got something written in this bit of the page where you should have it written, and you've got something written in this bit of the page where you should have it written. So, well done. Great job. It's SEO. You've nailed the SEO but that isn't what SEO is.
Surfer SEO is the tool that everybody uses at the moment for that. I don't know if you've seen it. But you put your page into Surfer and it gives you a score. And people are like, yep, I've got a Surfer score of 100, so all my articles are brilliantly optimized. And you're like, well, for what?
Yeah.
And they're like, but it's optimized. It'll be ranking for something, I hope. And it's like, it's just, you've got to understand these tools are prompting you to do something, but you have to understand the why and the how. You can't just... it's just reducing things to inputs is just massively oversimplifying the problem.
People have often spoken about being number one in Google without the for what bit.
Which
at
is
the
just
end
completely
of it,
not.
It's. I think it's still out there. I think it's. Hello. Can you help us? Can you help us be number one in Google? The for what bit. You wrote, I think, a blog post, and I think we've spoken about this recently. Because we work in some fairly tight niches or niches. If you're in America, I say that every time.
I still don't believe they say that, but
they do. That's really funny. But anyway. It's really difficult sometimes to get any sort of meaningful data.
Yeah, absolutely.
To try and understand what your potential customers are actually typing into search engines.
That whole point as well about SEO and the way it's sold, it always absolutely baffles me. And people are like, I'll get you number one positions in Google. It's like, okay, so first of all, like you say, for what keywords? That's the really important part of the puzzle, because you don't just want to be number one for the keywords you think you want to be number one for the keywords that people in your target audience actually use to buy whatever you're selling. And then the other part of it is like, when they get to your number one listing in Google, are they going to click it? I mean, we've talked about this recently about like title elements and making them more than just sort of a SEO fodder. You've got to convince somebody to click it, and then they click it. And like half of SEO surely is what's actually on the page and how you're going to convince people and what you're going to do with the traffic once you've acquired it. But it's just all reduced to this sort of like, what are my rankings? What's my traffic? It's just, it massively oversimplifies the problem to the point where it's almost absurd. It's almost sort of a farcical sort of situation where you just got loads of people sort of desperately shouting at you, I'll get you number one rankings, and that's it, apparently.